Hey everyone, it's Ken Paulson, the Data Monkey here again. And in this video, I thought what we'd do is we'd actually take a look at some of the content from one of my Skill Wave courses. And in particular, we're going to go and look at. Sound good? Let's get started. I've seen a lot of scenarios where people try and bring in so much granularity of data just in case, and it drives their models to a halt. So if you don't need to do that, if you're never going to analyze to a really deep level, why not group up the data? And the answer is that it's always because it's been kind of hard. So what we're actually after is to take something that's got lots of detail and reduce it down to something like this if we're never going to actually get in there and dig around at the lower granularity level. And the good news is there's a recipe for this, and it's super, super easy inside Power Query. You go to Transform Group By. And at that point, you choose the column that you want to group by. So in this case, it would be category. And then you choose the aggregation that you want, which would be sum of sales. This now gives us a two-line table, which is a heck of a lot less data to carry in the model, where the rest of the original data might live, say, on the server or in the original data source. What's really cool too, though, is that there's also some advanced options inside the grouping dialog. In there, you can add grouping levels. So maybe we say, look, you know what? I don't want to group it just down to beer and cider level. I actually need to know whether or not it's a domestic or an import. Well, no problem. We'll just add the market as one of the grouping levels. We can do that, and it now breaks that beer down into its domestic and import components. In addition, we might be looking for other aggregations. Maybe we want to know what the average is. Well, we can add other aggregations right through that grouping dialog as well. Pretty slick. So you can group things up in just the way you want in order to get the information you're after. Another really nice thing about this is that your data table can be super, super wide with lots and lots of extra columns. There's no need to go through and prune them first because when you choose the columns you want to group by, it just returns those. You don't have to drop the other stuff first. That's pretty nice because it saves you a step along the way. So let's go take a look at this in practice. So what I'm looking at here in the blue table on the left-hand side is a whole bunch of data that's at a much more detailed level than I actually need. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, I've got this green table here that shows me the summary information that I'm after from the blue table. Now, I could very easily go and insert a pivot table and build the version that you see in green. Not a big deal. It wouldn't take me very long. But what I want you to consider here is what if this blue table is 1,000,000 rows and it's sitting inside a SQL Server database? Do I really want to bring 1,000,000 rows back to Excel, land them in a worksheet, and then pivot it? That doesn't seem like it should be necessary. I'd much rather group it down to have as the smallest component so that I'm not carrying the extra weight of the original data rows. So that's what we're going to look at doing right now. So I'm going to click inside the blue table, and I'm just going to go up to my data tab and choose from table to pull this data into Power Query. Now, we never looked at how long this data set is. It's actually not super long, but that's not really the point here. What I want to do is I want to reduce it further. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to go in and group this up. To do that, we'll go to Transform, and we'll choose Group By. This will bring up our grouping dialog for us that looks like this. So I could easily go and say, look, I'm going to group this by, say, group. And then I'm going to go and choose to sum the sales dollar column. And I think, you know what? Why don't we just call this one something like sales dollars? Why not? And now when we say OK, you'll notice that it groups it up nicely. We have our total sales dollars by food and alcohol. Now, that's great, but that might be just a little too summarized. So I'm going to go back to the group rows dialog. I'm going to click the gear icon to bring it back up. And I'm going to go to advanced. And I'll be honest, every time I use this dialog, I go straight to advanced because this gives me more advanced options. I'm now going to add a grouping level. And it automatically picks category. Perfect. That's great. But what if I wanted category first? Well, this is one of those areas where it pays to actually mouse over things. You'll notice that if I move my cursor here, I don't really have any indication as to how I could do this. But if I move my mouse over this, notice the little ellipse menu that pops up. This is a more menu. And if you click on it, you can change the order by moving up or even deleting, moving down, things like that. So this is actually, in my opinion, very bad user interface design. You have to wave the mouse over things to see these commands come up in this case. At any rate, while we're here, if we say OK, you'll notice that it now changes the grouping levels and breaks them down a little bit more. So that's cool. Let's go back and add something else though, because I wanted to add a couple more things. I wanted to add a minimum of the sales dollars, which I'll call the min. I also wanted to add, by converse, the max of the sales dollars as well, and call this one the max. Now, notice that there's all kinds of different aggregations that you actually have in here, some average medians. It's all great. In this case, these ones work nicely for what I'm looking for. And boom, just like that, I've now managed to summarize up, in this case, 141 records, but it easily could have been an awful lot more than that. So now, if I've actually got this in, we'll just go and call this one nicely summary. And I can say home, close and load to, and I'll just go and load those right over here into cell L3 as soon as it actually pops up and gives me the option to do so. There we are. So we'll go and put it right here. My columns are in a slightly different order, but you get the idea. We've now gone through, we've grouped it up with food and alcohol, and I can sort this any way I want. As a matter of fact, if I do want to replicate the orders that I have here, I'll just jump back in and say, cool, let's do it this way then. We can put that sort right on so it refreshes beautifully. We'll sort this in ascending order. We'll add another one to sort our category in ascending order as well. And then I'm going to change my sales dollars to go to the end. And if I want it to be exactly the same, I believe this one was actually called total. So I'll just double click and rename it. Although if I were building this from scratch and I was really feeling quite fussy about it, I would probably actually go through and actually name my original column that to begin with. From here, I might just set all these guys as currency. And at this point, this is now in the format that if I hit close and load, it should come out and look pretty darn similar to what we actually have on the left-hand side. And there we are.